Right. So it is nearly 2 minutes past 4. And to be fair to everybody who managed to reach fastest fingers first, so we will get going. And hopefully the others would be able to log in rather quickly. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. And I hope it's not good night for anyone as yet. Welcome to the fifth webinar of the Nautical Institute Singapore branch. The industry has relentlessly churnched out webinar after webinar. It's like mommy tormenting the children saying, if you don't eat your vegetables, I'll make you attend a webinar. So what did we do? We decided to bomb you all with a few more this month. However, I think we've got it right because we've had a fantastic turnout for our webinars. On more than 2 occasions, we've had over 250 registrations, including today. And so thank you for your continued support. Many have chirped that perhaps each one of you deserves a recording for tolerating me fortnight after fortnight, but there'll probably be a sabbatical after this one because we don't want to torture you a bit too many with webinars. In case you missed out on the previous 4 webinars, including our most recent one on adequacy of container lashing systems a fortnight ago, and you would like to revisit these discussions, the recordings are available on the Nautical Institute Singapore's LinkedIn page. For the broken record's sake, I have decided not to mention or remind you all that our Singapore branch annual seminar for 2020 has been postponed and is now scheduled to take place sometime around the third quarter of 2021. So no, I'm not going to remind you about that, but I just let the cat out of the bag. We trust you have your understanding on this and look forward to your participation as usual to make it a success. I would now like to pass the microphone to our branch president, Captain Yves Vanderborn, to share with us briefly on the branch activities and also introduce our expert panel for today. Over to you, Yves.
Thank you, Harry. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks again for joining. And I hope we do have a lot of same people that are joining us for this webinar. As Harry mentioned, unfortunately, we've had to look at things differently this year as so many industries have had to do. And we have actually quite happy. We've been able to organize all these webinars this year, and we've had the good fortune to be able to find good panelists each time, generating a really good discussion and interesting feedback from the panel and the audience that we have. A little bit about the NI, I have to do so, even though for some of you, similarly, it'll be a broken record. But I really do like to promote the Nautical Institute as a global independent body for maritime professionals and by maritime professionals. The NI does promote the standing of the maritime profession both afloat and ashore. It has NGO status at the IMO, which means that we directly promote the seafarers at the highest maritime body. There are a large number of benefits. If you are not yet a member of the NI, you should be joining. You get professional recognition that you can put on your LinkedIn or on your name cards. You get a Seaways magazine on a monthly basis with very interesting and technical training, a lot of different articles every month in the Seaways magazine. You get CPD training for events, even similarly for these webinars. And you get a free VideoTel training as well once a year. Now, I would want to refer you to our dedicated LinkedIn page for the Singapore branch, and as well to our Instagram account where we regularly put information. Later, when Harry is back on his video, you can find the details behind him. For those of you doubting still to join, it is not even expensive. You pay around £140 a year for your membership fee, so definitely not expensive. Now, one last thing I would want to say before I turn on to the panelists. We will be holding our annual general meeting for the Singapore branch on the 19th of November. I have circulated an email to all members, and I will be putting it on LinkedIn as well. So please, those who are a member, do join us on the 19th for our AGM. Now, if I turn to our panelists that we are very happy that could join us today, I would like to introduce Toon first. Toon joined Thome Group as vice president earlier this year. Toon, can you on your video? And he has worked in several. Thank you. He has worked in several companies before joining the Thome Group. He has more than 18 years of experience in the logistics industry. He led and managed global infrastructure, application, and field IT support for a team of 120 people. He managed the global strategic directions and delivered major business capabilities driven through application development, mainly for enterprise resource planning, transport management, warehouse management system, and infrastructure architecture initiative. Thank you so much for joining us today, Toon. I then would like to introduce Svante. Svante is a principal consultant with DNVGL. He is the leading maritime cybersecurity. Sorry, I did say that wrongly, Svante. You are a principal consultant with the leading DNVGL's maritime cybersecurity advisory services globally. You have extensive experience from assessing cybersecurity on vessels, as well as advising clients on maritime IT and OT security. I'm sure you will explain what that is later. You have experience on cybersecurity management systems, risk management, training of staff crew, compliance against international regulations and standards. Svante has been closely involved in the development of the NVGL cybersecurity standards and services, as well as in maritime cybersecurity guidance and networks. So definitely the right expert to talk to the audience today from a class perspective. Thank you, Svante. Last but not least, we have Stephan with us today. Stephan is currently Managing Director of Chartworld Asia Pacific. For those of you doubting his sea legs, Stephan did start his maritime career as a navigator for the German Navy. Don't hold that against him, though. So he has experience on board of ships. He began his commercial journey back in 2008 when he was working on digital navigation for another Agdes sales team. He then joined Chartworld in 2011. As I mentioned, he currently is the managing director there and has been instrumental in redefining the way that Chartworld is developing and packaging their Agdes equipment together with the charts. Combination of his end user and development knowledge has led Stephan to become recognized as a global digital navigational expert in the shipping industry. And as such, he has had an open dialogue with both government and non-governmental organizations. On top of that, Stephan has also a very good experience in post-accident investigations and can serve as expert witness. So Stephan, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Our moderator, I do not need to introduce. Harry is Vice President of the Singapore branch of the Nautical Institute. He's also Regional Head of Business Relations at Shipowners P&I Club. Harry has a sailing career that has spanned over 17 years on a wide range of vessels. He joined Shipowners Club in 2009 and earlier this year changed his role to become the regional head of business relations. We will be joined later as well by Captain Ken Allen, who is the secretary for the Singapore branch. Harry, back to you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Yves. And yes, a round of applause for these fantastic panelists for taking time off to share their expertise with us. Before we proceed any further, a few house rules for today's session, and we request your quiet understanding and cooperation of the same. I love this section, the rules. If you have a question, we request you to use the Q&A chat function. I know we love to use the chat function, but we've got a Q&A chat function we're paying for, so please use it and type out your question. You all can vote on the questions already raised in case they are similar to the ones in mind. We shall raise this to our panel as appropriate. Please don't take it personally in case your question is not discussed and continue leaving me on your Christmas card list. The questions will be taken up by us at a Q&A session after the panelists present their views. So the end is the Q&A session. I would like to reiterate my sincere request to the audience. Please use your discretion when posing questions to our panelists, that they are in line with the topic of discussion. We would not like to discuss the US presidential debate over here because it's inappropriate. And if the questions are not relevant or considered inappropriate, we won't be presenting them to our panelists. And should there be any unaddressed issues during the webinar, please feel free to write into us at Singapore branch at nauticalinstitute.org. Right, ladies and gentlemen, moving to our topic of discussion today. The more we get enchanted and entwined with technology and its advancement in our maritime operations, the more vulnerable we become to cyber attacks. When we refer to the term cyber, it's not only limited to any particular system as such, but in fact, anything which interfaces with the internet, and the culprit could well be something as simple as our own private mobile phones. What you watch on those phones, we won't discuss here. A lot of organizations have published top quality publications and guides to prepare the operators for what's to come with regard to cyber readiness. The organization I work for, the Shipowners P&I Club, too, has been very active in doing this, along with other stakeholders such as classification societies and other bodies. And should you require material, I would suggest that it is available for free download from the respective websites. If we have all that, then why this session? I would like to underline it by saying that face-to-face, well, at least virtually, and given our present circumstances, gives us the opportunity to interact directly and understand straight from the panelists on the requirements, and also a perspective into how the industry players are going about preparing for this. There have been recent news reports on cyber attacks over the past few years, and these are becoming even more prolific, with some big players in the aviation and shipping industry falling prey to ransomware, literally threatening to bring their businesses to a grinding halt. The shipping industry too has a lot at stake when it comes to putting all its egg into the cyber basket. However, with regard to the cyber revolution, it is a case of shaping up or shipping out, and we have to take this fight to the hackers' doorstep and don't let them build this immoral battle. For the love of God, I hope I don't get hacked overnight for my rhetoric. Nevertheless, let's leave it to the experts, and I would like to call upon Svante Einarsson as our first speaker. Svante, hi, welcome back. And many thanks for finding valuable time to participate in our webinar as a panelist. We are indeed fortunate to have you on our webinar because it's no secret that DNVGL are one of the pioneers when it comes to cyber security. And we are lucky that we have you as the head of cyber security to enlighten us. I have a few questions to get the ball rolling. So questions before and also later. What are the upcoming statutory and class regulations as per IMO Cyber Security guidelines coming into force on 1st January 2021? What do owners and operators need to do towards complying with statutory and class requirements for the same? And last but not the least, what are the class audit requirements for the same? And how would this process be carried out towards maintaining class? I think a lot of people on our audience would like to know what class is going to be doing and how they have to maintain their compliance towards this. Over to you, Svante, all yours.
Thank you so much, Harry. That was a great introduction. I will start sharing my screen so I can show you my few slides I have as well. I hope this is working now. All right. There's a lot of topics to discuss, a lot of good questions already mentioned. I try to fit them in my 12 minutes presentation. But before I start, I just wanted to point out, we as DNVGL, we are divided into different sections, different units, also addressing cybersecurity. I'm leading the Maritime Advisory Unit, really focusing on consultancy, assessing and improving our clients' resilience towards cybersecurity. Then we have an independent team from Ship Classification. They deliver cyber secure class notation and cyber secure type approval for system and components. And then finally, which is a very interesting part of our organization, of course, today, is the ISM auditors themselves, which we have been working on to also now start addressing cybersecurity within their ISM audits. To introduce the topic, first of all, what is actually IMO now requiring? Well, from the beginning, the ISM code came out they actually stated in the very in the beginning of that document that all risks needs to be identified and to taken care of or managed. And from our point of view as the individual, and I know a lot of other organizations have seen this the same way, if cyber risks is a risk to our vessels, then it has to be also addressed by ISM code. This was already the case before the IMO resolution MSC 428/98 came out in 2017. But that resolution really made it very crystal clear within the safety management system, we need now to also address cyber risk management. And some organizations have used a couple of months still to implement this, and some others have actually until the end of the next year. It's a next doc audit in beginning of the 1st of January 2021 that you have to have this implemented. And in the end, also IMO came out in 2017 together with the resolution, a guidance document, it's about 4 pages long, talking about high-level aspects of cybersecurity for the maritime assets that needs to be taken care of, such as we need to talk about both IT, classical administrational systems and tasks, but also these OT that was already mentioned, operational technology or control systems need to be covered both, especially since the control systems are the ones that are responsible or actually could cause damage to people or to the vessel or the environment. We need to understand that these systems are integrated with each other, also with the outside world. Then the guidance document also talks about it's not only classical hacker attacks that we need to protect ourselves from, but also unintentional events. It could be a mistake by a crew member or a vendor or someone else. And then it talks about the defense in depth principle. I'll get back to that. And in the end, also referring to some really good standards that are out there for your reference. So I recommend you to have a look at these documents for sure if you haven't done so already. So this is the basis of today's discussion. And we as the individual are getting a lot of questions, of course, towards this. So we have actually developed a safety management cybersecurity quick check. It's available for free on our websites. It was released now about a month ago, and it tries to educate the industry about what will be at least some of the key relevant requirements that our ISM auditors will have a specific look at. It's not going into all the details, it's not complete, but it takes maybe 10 minutes for you to fill out, and then you get at least a good impression on what will be expected from me. I have already over 300 answers on this, and as you see, the division of the different types of stakeholders that have been answering this quick check has been about 70% the owners and managers or operators, and that's the key. Those are the ones that need to fulfill the ISM code in the end. So we're going to look into a little bit of the results already today in my presentation. The first one is actually referring back to the requirement of the ISM code section 1222. And I simplified the question for you to be easier to read today. But is your company actually already handling cyber risk management within your safety management system? Is that the case already today? And interesting enough, about 2/3 are saying yes to this question, but 1/3 is still having some work to do. It seems like it's not disclosing now if they have already started working on this or if they're in implementation phase or so on. But we can see that a lot of operators and managers still have some work to do. And I think that is why also this such a seminar as today is very important for everyone actually to be ready to the next dock audit in 2021. One key aspect of cybersecurity, I would say, it doesn't matter if it's a maritime asset or if it's something else, it's actually what the NIST cybersecurity framework tailored out, and it's a sort of a defense in depth concept. It talks about identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And this is also taken up by the IMO guidance document. It's important to understand that a perfect or a zero risk in terms of cyber will never be reachable, but it's all about resilience. And the more barriers I can implement, the better prepared I will be. So it's important to identify what is my problem, what is my strengths, what are the systems, responsibilities, and so on. Then go in to implement some really good protective measures, making sure that these are actually also going into the different dimensions of protective measures. I'll get back to that in the next slides. Detect, make sure that you are able to detect events and respond and recover. So emergency response is key. Let's see what the users have been already responding to this type of question. Are you implementing a defense in-depth concept? Of those that already said that yes, we have been or we are doing cyber risk management, about a half is doing it, at least to their understanding of this question, and the rest of them are not. And I would definitely say that it's key for everyone to be able to say yes here, because defense in depth, breaking one barrier is fairly easy. Breaking multiple barriers will be much harder and will also be enable you to be prepared for the worst case event, which actually will happen to everyone in if you look at the long-term period. To think that you never will have to encounter an incident is wrong thinking. All right, how do we then become compliant towards this resolution and towards IMO in general? Well, it's actually a typical management system requirement. It's a plan, do, check, act cycle that we need to roll out. And I usually recommend to my clients that don't necessarily make a complete separate cyber safety or cyber security management system, but implement it into your existing safety management system instead. So update your objectives, make sure you have an inventory, use the risk assessment concept that they have already and expand it to also cover cyber risks. Implement different protective measures, make sure you are using both human procedures and technology measures in order to raise your resilience. Check that you're actually coming towards the goal that you're hoping, and update yourself. This is key, especially for cyber risks. We see that the attackers are exploiting or are improving their tools every day, and also our systems on board are getting more and more features, are getting better and better integrated also with each other, but to the outside world. So we have to redo this process all the time in order to make sure that we are covering our cyber resilience at the best we can. One question we put out in this term was what I was saying about the different types of safeguards and which one are you utilizing. And I'm really happy to see that people that are already implementing cyber risk resilience, they are understanding the concept that it's not an issue here we should not focus on only one of the pillars, human, organizational, technical safeguards, but we need to work on all of them. It's interesting, maybe it's the organizational safeguards a little bit higher than the others. Maybe that is because the IMO requirement is also focusing mostly on the organizational part. But in order for the organizational to be strong, the humans needs to be educated and needs to have their explicit roles and responsibilities. And also they need to have the technical equipment in place to do this. Just shortly mention also that insurance is something that is picking up speed here as well. There's a clause 380 excluding cyber risks in the standard insurance contracts, but now insurance companies are starting to offer also buyback of cyber risks. So have a look into that as well. Talk to your insurance company if that is an option for you too. Always prepare for the worst. That's my key message today, I would say. What are we doing then as a recognized organization from DNVGL side? Well, our ISM auditors have put this topic as a focus area for this year and also for next year. We have implemented or developed a checklist that is extensive, much also more extensive than the quick check I showed you, but that at least is based on the same structure and the same thinking. We follow, as ISM auditors within our organization, the ISM code requirements. Obviously, that's the key. But also there will be some flag state administration requirements. There's a lot of active flag state out there: Denmark, US, even India, and other flag states are putting out guidance and requirements themselves. So check with your flag state what they have that you need to also take care of in this sense. And then the focus from our ISM officers is not the technical details of your cyber defenses, but it's actually, are you managing the cyber risk? Are you assessing it? Are you implementing good safeguards? And are you continuously improving this? Do you have documentation on this? Are there roles and responsibilities in place in order to handle this? That's the key from our ISM officers' point of view. And I'm going to finish now. Time is short, so just to give you some more resources for you to read more into, we have a landing page, Maritime Cyber Security landing page you can find online, really updated this year to also give you key information on the ISM guidance. We have this quick check that I already mentioned to you, available just clicking this link. I think you will get to this presentation in any case after this webinar, so you don't have to make a screenshot in order to access the link. And then we have our service pages talking about the cybersecurity class notation, the services that I provide as a consultancy, but also our ISM auditors. So I hope this gives you a first good impression, and I'm happy to receive your questions later on. Thank you so much.
That's excellent, Svante. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. And I think this is just perfect. You've sowed the seeds. It's just paving the way for our next panelist. And speaking of questions, I think the Q&A has already started buzzing for you. I would like to invite on a screen our second panelist, Toon Fu. Toon, can you please come online? Hello.
Hello.
Toon, being the VP of the IT department of a leading ship manager, you are in no doubt in the thickest of action when it comes towards preparing for IMO Cyber 2021. So a few questions from us to get you rolling. How are ship managers coping with complying with the upcoming requirements? What practical processes and procedures implemented across the fleet vessels, such as antiviruses, USB usage, mobile charging on ships' equipment, etc., can you share with us? What challenges were faced while implementing so far? And if you have any lessons learned from these challenges for our audience, it would be fantastic. Over to you, Toon.
Okay, thank you, Haris. And I'm glad to be the panelist for today's sessions. And yes, I think ship management, how ship management coping with the upcoming requirement, I think there's one. It's always a question that I've been asking: are we ready? Okay, and then how are we coaching on all the regulations? And to be said, to be correct, for today's session, there will not be any. I will not present anything, but I will walk through with you some of the key areas that we are focusing on, and for these sessions. And actually, for the past months, Thome Ship Management do have numbers of initiatives to cope with this new regulation coming on board in 1st Jan 2021. And the way I see it, we are ready, and but there's always a say that there's rules of improvement and improvise moving on. Of course, tying back with it, there's a lot of areas that we have improved. Maybe I will use the 5 IMO framework guidelines, which just now Svante actually mentioned about the defense in depth. I believe that's the word, defense in depth. That five framework guidelines actually will be identified of areas that we are moving on to make sure that we are secure, we are resilient to ensure that operations is carried on as usual. I think that start off with number one is actually to identify threat and vulnerabilities. Okay, for that areas actually for the past years, our company actually have engaging on cyber education, cyber awareness, and and for the last few months, we are also continue doing that. In future, we will be doing that as well for more, or for the vessel and for the shore as well. Those trainings includes some training like our CBT and also our PDSO, which is written as a post departure orientation seminars, which is compulsory for all the seafarers before they go on board. That's to ensure that they're well aware, well trained, and well informed of all this security or their role and responsibility. On top of that, we also have started all our installations of our software on the vessels for visibility of software and hardware, including all the versions and the availabilities to make sure that all this is identified. As for the second point, that's how you mentioned, is actually protect. How are we going to protect against the cyber events to ensure that all the BCPs in place, and having a software to monitor and to be account for all the latest updates, and all the unauthorized software to where incident will be happens. And we also making sure that's how on how are we going to disable unnecessary device on the vessels to ensure that the environment is well secured and protected. And the third of that is actually, after all this protection, how are we going to detect it accurately and timely? I think that's two important words that are for detection, to ensure that we can have a proper, accurate, and timeliness detect of any events will happens. And with that, actually, as a ship manager, we have put in place all the firewalls, email protections, and endpoint protection on the vessels to ensure that all this is well guided and detect any cyber events will be detect promptly. And this also to reduce with a swift detecting. This will also reduce the potential and vulnerability impact to the vessels. The next point, actually, after detection, of course, how are we going to respond to it? How fast can we respond to it? I think this is in order to respond fast and swiftly. I think a lot of daily work, a lot of pre-preparation is required, including the contingency plan, the DCP, which is what they always referring to, and also the DR plan as well, to mitigate all the impacts that are on all the identified cyber risks. So, of course, all this plan will be in place, but all this plan, actually, we are also periodically perform it and review it, so that it's well maintained. And last but not least, with all the response, how can we recover? If we really get attacked, how are we going to recover it completely and safely back to the full operation status? At this portion, I will emphasize a lot of what we call RTO, RPO. RTO is represent meaning recover point of objective and recover time of objective, on the point that how much data will be lost if we get hit. And of course, that is to keep to a minimum. And how fast can we recover, and how fast can we back to operation, and how much time they need to back to full operation status. So those are the key points that we need to measure and that need to be exercised. Okay, so much on these five IMO framework guidelines that we actually following closely and putting all components into place to ensure that we are running up and to gear up on the readiness of the upcoming January, which is only 2 months from now. Okay, but along this way, actually, there's one question is asking what is the challenges that we are facing while we are doing this, and the lesson is I believe challenges. There's a number of challenges. Right on top, I believe is always the very common one, which mention about vessel communication, vessel data communication. With the slow, low, poor communication, actually that hidden quite a lot of us of doing all this implementation, and to the extent that we are trying our best to make sure that we are able to make it with all the vessel, including all the equipment by end of this year. So vessel communication is one of the challenges, and of course the next one will be saying the seafarer IT competence and awareness. As you know, the seafarer is rotating, and training awareness is and guidance is actually a continuous effort. It's not a one-time effort to train everyone, but it's a continuous effort to keep on training them. I think that's one of the challenges that we were facing in the past and in the future as well. And the third one that I want to highlight maybe is it's more on the standard audit or validation procedure of the IMO, where how are we going to be measure, how are we going to be audit on our cybersecurity readiness. It might be still new, and there might not be it's still new at the extent that we might not have a target or goal pole that we are aiming for, that how are we going to perform well. So in general, I think I mentioned in the starting, there's always a room of improvement, and there's always, and how are we going to improvise if things happen. Last but not least, on the challenges, I will say that definitely we need a lot of management support as well from the top management, from our company, as well from all the owners and all our stakeholders involved, in order to make sure that we are going to able to implement all these initiatives on schedule to meet the timeline. And that's all for me on all the sharing of all the points that require. Okay, Aris, hand over to you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Setun, very much. This is insightful. How you all are preparing towards implementing the requirements about your diverse fleet, and useful pointers indeed. Thank you. Moving on to our third and finalist panelists, Stephan, Dimke. Stephan, many thanks for being part of our panel this evening. We have saved you around for the last, indeed, because ever since we started the series of webinars, a lot of teams were linked with cyber security, and it is growing concerns, all shouting out one question. So we've saved this best for the last, and this is related to the vulnerability of modern navigation systems. I mean, it's not as simple as Captain Kirk to the USS Enterprise, beam me up, Scotty. We've moved over very far from that. But everyone says that navigation systems now, electronic navigation systems, literally with total automation, is the heart of the ship. If the ship doesn't move, then everything comes to a standstill. We may as well pack our bags and go home. But are we becoming, more vulnerable? So the huge concerns how navigational and communication systems rely a lot on cyber systems. And now with these increasingly menacing cyber attacks, are we more vulnerable towards paralyzing the ships rather than being more efficient? What cyber protection systems and solutions are available to the industry to implement towards comprehensive protection for ship systems, especially navigation systems? Like, I'm going to ask you to focus on the navigation element as such today. Over to you, Stephan.
Good, thank you, Ari. That is good that you're focusing on the navigation part, because I am good in that. That is my expertise. You're saying total automation of all navigation systems. We will discuss this later, how total that is. Let me first share my screen now that we're getting my presentation running. So I hope you all see my presentation now. And we're starting. So I would like to show you all the view of a navigation solution provider. And we're starting with this, with the first part. We're talking about the #1 threat of commercial shipping, cybersecurity on actors and navigation. Is that really the case? I would like to discuss it here in this 10 minutes that I have. Second of all, I would like to show you where I think, or Chartworld thinks, what is the focus that you really should look at. And then in the end, I will present some solutions of the industry. I will have still face in there that I provided. First of all, everything what Svante and Toon said is correct. Yeah, so you should focus on cybersecurity. You have to implement something. If you are also doing in your offices, similar procedures need to be implemented on the ships. But if I'm looking at the last digital ship, I entered cyber in there, and 113 hits came up with cyber. And yes, even 2 big players in the market have been hit by a cyber attack lately. But these 2 attacks have been done in the shipping company office. I worked, Eve didn't say it before, I worked for Transas before, since 2008, all the time in Actis sales. So I did the complete Actis mandation period with implementing Actis. I didn't do anything else after my Navy time. And in this complete time, from 2008 until now, there was only 1 vessel that I saw that had a blackout because of viruses cyber attack. So my question is now, is this now really the biggest threat of all? Or is it something where some people want to make money with? Talking about money, important is you have to do something. As I said, as Svante also said, it's not only DNVGL that helps you to get this in line. Intertanko, BIMCO asking for this. RightShip is asking this, and SIRE is also asking for cybersecurity measures on board. So no doubt you have to do something, but what should you do and what makes sense and what is only wasted money? And wasted money in these times is something that we should avoid. These are the 4 areas that I would like to focus if it comes to Actis navigation, the total automation. Yeah, the first part is viruses. Viruses on the Actis is an issue, mainly because of the human factor. Because 50% of all vessels at the moment have VSAT. Yeah, of this 50% of the vessels that are potentially connected to internet, yeah, perhaps again 50% the Actis is connected to the comm system. So there is not the majority of vessels does not have this issue, yeah, but everyone has a officer on board that has to update the Actis with a USB stick. This USB stick could have been used somewhere else. A wrong USB stick could be used. Yeah, there are, I will show you later on, measures in place that protect the USB stick itself, but they could change it and take another USB stick. That is possible. So the human factor, USB sticks are an issue, and if no firewall systems are implemented at the gate to the vessel, in the beginning, there where it starts, that is where you have to do something. The additional thing that you can implement later on, that is what Svante also said, I think, this is only then the second gateway, yeah? We'll talk about this later. Then the second thing, GPS signals, jamming and spoofing, yeah? So that you don't get the right position of the vessel. Yeah, that is also big in the media. That is an issue that is hard to control because coming from outside, but there are ways of approaching this. And then something, ENCs. Yeah, there's also in the media. There have been some researches of hacker groups. Yeah, the chart can be changed and then sent to the vessel, and then suddenly the vessel is maneuvering on a reef or something like this. Chartworld was part of the UKHO until 2011. Since then, we've got our own chart server delivering data from the UKHO to the vessel. And I tell you now what need to happen until someone can change an ENC. Someone has to hack into our server at Chartworld. We have Amazon servers, we've got remote other servers, we've got different servers. They have to hack into this. Then they have to use an ENC production tool somehow to create this ENCs, the specific ENCs somewhere, and change it in a way that it simply looks the same like before, but not exactly like before, so that they change, for example, reef. Then this correction need to pass the S64 test. A good chart supplier in their chart server before sending data out to the vessel, to the actors, is always doing this S64 test if the chart data is correct according to IMO test. And then last but not least, if you're changing this one chart on the chart server of the chart supplier, this chart will be delivered to all vessels of this chart supplier, and only if the vessel is ordering this chart or using this chart. This is so unlikely that this is happening. If I were you, I wouldn't focus on this one. Yeah, the chart suppliers are focusing that this is safe, and for sure, we as a supplier for actors and charts, we do our homework. Yeah, we do our stress tests. We have firewalls at home. We do the same that you are doing. But there, this is a part. Ask your chart supplier, your actor supplier. This is their homework, not yours. And then, last but not least, on this one, the remote access, the total automation. As I said, 50% of all vessels still working with FBB and email communication with the actors. Yeah, the actors is not connected to autopilot or track control. Tell me how to steer a vessel with email communication, yeah, where you have to press the button that the email communication starts. I don't think that is where you should focus on. I think these are the two things from the navigation provider perspective that you could focus on and put something in addition to your process in place. These are the solutions that I suggest you should implement. It is very much in line with the DNV GL requirements. First of all, set up a cybersecurity procedure as ISM and IMO is asking for now. Then train your crew, create awareness. Human factor is the biggest issue. Protect the gateway in the beginning. That is the key to get only the right data in there. And then, in addition, you could think about additional risk reduction measures. I will show you some later on. And this is, for me, the most important part. Review if your crew understood what you're doing there. The best gateway, the best risk reduction measure will not help if the crew is still taking a USB stick from somewhere and using this there. If you can ask, we created, and you can see here all these documents that Svante talked about. We created a standard cybersecurity procedure for our clients. You can ask us, you can ask your other suppliers if they have similar in place to help you. It's always easier to start from something that's already existing than doing everything on your own. Solutions, we said the threats that I saw is the GPS and the ENCs. I'm looking now at the GPS. The GPS, the signal could be wrong. Yeah, so there are solutions in place to verify if this is the case or not. First of all, the simplest one, procedures in place, verify the verification on the actors with manual position bearings, echo referencing, you name it. The old style of navigation. Look out of the window. That is the easiest. Second of all, use EFPS equipment that is not only receiving GPS. Yeah, look at other alternative devices that you can receive there. Switch over to one of them from time to time. Third of all, jamming and spoofing of the GPS. There are suppliers in the market that are supplying anti-jamming antennas, spoofing devices. You can buy them if you want. Now to the actors part, the ENC part. I said that is the other thing what I'd like to focus on if you want to focus on this next to the procedures. And here it is always the same. It is always the setup like this. There is the internet, the ship server is going to a gateway. There is the actors and there is the ship's network. The internet and the ship's network should be disconnected from the actors because of some kind of additional, yeah. Here, the first line of fire needs to be done by the shipping company comm system, but then an additional hardware. If this hardware is in the end black or orange or gray, all the same. All suppliers offering the same kind of hardware. Yeah, all navigation suppliers disconnecting the OT equipment from the rest of the communication. Yeah, here's ours. Here is the ship's network. Here's our gateway. Here are the actors. That is always what they do. That is a solution that is available in the market if you want to buy something for the actors to have additional safety on top of your own procedures. My last slide, I did a little overview what is available in the market. On the top, you've got the main chart supplier. On the bottom here, you've got the main actor suppliers. There are two companies that do both. Starting from the top, you can see those chart suppliers that are mainly focusing on digital navigation. They are offering this kind of boxes that I just showed. They are offering these gateways where you can connect the actors to the comm system. The older ones, also the big ones, but older ones are not there yet because they are perhaps missing this knowledge of having the actors and the Nafta is offering a kernel, an actors kernel. They know what they're doing. Chartworld has no actors. Coming down here to the, by the way, Wärtsilä is also offering ENC. So this is also, they are also a supplier. But here now, the actors suppliers down there, here you can see those that are also delivering data. Wärtsilä and Chartworld, they have something in place. Perun and JRC, not focusing so much on it. But this is makes sense because the data is coming from the chart supplier to the vessel. And only if you've got the complete chain, it makes sense to implement something. If I were you, I'd look on the type approved equipment to IEC 6016240. This is not mandatory yet, but it will come. And to be on the very safe side, I would look into also equipment that is included in your actors type approval certificate. You never know if you if something is happening, and we've got guys from the PI club here in the audience. Perhaps they will look into the details if something happened and something went wrong. That's it from my side. Thank you very much. Now I have to unshare my screen again. Yeah. Stop sharing. Good.
Yeah, that is a challenge of cyber, isn't it, Stephan? Thank you very much. That was indeed excellent. Actually, you covered a lot of points. I'm not so sure whether you already had a crystal ball which showed you what questions were coming hard and fast, but you've kind of covered quite a few of them. And thanks, Stephan. Really very elaborate. And right, I'm sure they would have much more for you questions. And thank you, speakers, for having your pieces exactly within your time frame. That leaves us with so much more time for Q&As. And coming back to our favorite part, the Q&A session, I would request all our panelists to please come on screen and would then pass the center stage to our branch secretary, Captain Ken Elam, who will run with the Q&A session. So over to you, Ken, and all our panelists.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks again to our panelists for a very insightful introduction into cybersecurity and what's in store for all of the mariners and at sea in the future. So we've had quite a few questions and quite a few have been answered. So I think what's very important for us to understand is this is all going to become part of the ISM, and going forward, I think I'm going to put this to all our panelists and ask if, in their opinion, the marine crews that we have out there offshore and also in the Blue Water Fleet, if they are going to be properly trained and fully understand the complications that come with IT systems and the cyber problems that they could get. So maybe, Stephen, if you can just kick off with your thoughts on that.
I hope so. This is no rocket science. Everyone knows how to keep his computer at home safe, and if they would do the same for the systems on board with help of the IT department and their say Toon will help more, I think everyone should be able to do that.
Okay, and say, Toon, from your perspective within Thome, are you comfortable that the IT department will be able to get all your mariners fully up to speed with understanding the complications of IT security?
I would say that there's no silver bullet. Okay, there will not be a silver bullet that can solve all the problems. I would say that it's a continual effort, it's a progressive effort to train all the seafarer. Definitely, it's a possible goal. Just take examples on the ground, in the office. Some of your staff or some of your guys actually is more IT savvy than your IT guy. Sometimes they will even challenge us on certain IT things or certain security things that they have this from somewhere. So same for seafarer. As time went by, I believe there will be more competence, and they are more. Let's start as let's get the awareness up. Let's get the more in depth of competence and slowly moving forward. It's definitely a goal that is possible. Yep. Okay.
Okay, that's so you're very positive that we are going to get there in due course. Svante, I want to move over to the cybersecurity plan, and we've had a question with regards to this, and I think this is in two parts really, as to whether it should be designed for a fleet or for a vessel, and the second part of that is obviously the confidentiality of this plan. When a class go on board to obviously carry out the inspection and things like that, how do you get around reviewing a confidential plan? And obviously you need to have access to this to be able to approve it and to sign off as class. So are you envisaging any problems in that area?
Good question. Well, try to answer the first part of the question. Well, first of all, the requirements is vessel specific, for sure. I usually recommend our clients to do it on a fleet basis, first of all, to ensure that you are looking into policies and procedures that are applicable as far as possible to all your vessels within the fleet. Executing risk assessment, for instance, that is based on a generic vessel concept with generic systems and so on. And then you take this generic work that you have and then you start rolling this out and check that it's actually also functioning and really working, operating this way on each specific ship. That would be on the second stage, basically. So it's a two-step approach I would recommend in terms of this. And when it comes to the confidentiality of the information, well, it is said that the ISM or the safety management system is the key place to keep this information. But you may also have, of course, information that is rather more suitable to be stored in the ship security plan, so required by the ISPS instead. And that might be the way of handling the very most confidential information that you would like to have. And then in that sense, that information is of course audited as any other part of the ISPS requirements and the ship security plan. So it follows the same principle in confidentiality as that. Huh?
Okay, super, thanks. And leading on from that, you've mentioned the security plan and also the cybersecurity plan. Do you envisage in the future seeing specific training as we have for security officers? Do you envisage seeing specific training to have a cybersecurity officer on board and someone that's actually responsible for that?
Well, yeah, I tried to answer it already, but try to elaborate a bit. Most vessels, the more simplified vessels, container vessels and so on, with not that many crew members on board, would not expect these types of vessels to have a dedicated person working only on cybersecurity, but rather someone on board taking the role and responsibility tasks in supporting the onshore IT department and the onshore superintendents to manage the cybersecurity on board, making sure that training has been executed by all the crew members, ensuring that work permits has been signed and executed before changes to systems and softwares are executed. Updates of might have to be done, some manual updates to some systems, that they are done in a proper and a timely manner, and so on and so forth. There will be some tasks that will have to be executed on board, checking that the DMVDL surveyor or the vendor service engineer are actually fulfilling minimum requirements, not plugging in his personal USB keys and other things into different devices on board. But these types of responsibilities and tasks and authority has to be on board. And that could be delegated then in most cases to someone that is already there, the chief engineer, the second officer, the electrician, supporting the master in these types of responsibility. We have also, of course, more complex vessels, cruise vessels, or drilling vessels, or other production vessels, and they might have an opportunity, and we have seen that in some of our cases, that they can actually put this on the IT manager on board, that he maybe takes a part of his job to solely focus on this task. But it really depends on how many staff you have and resources available.
Okay, super, thanks. Say, Toon, within Thome, is just sort of touching back onto dedicated security officers, what is your company's approach in dealing with this? Are you making it the responsibility of one officer on board? Obviously, the master has overall authority on all these things, but are you making it a designated area for a particular officer, say a second officer or a chief engineer, or are you making it the responsibility of everyone on board the ship?
I would say that responsibility is everyone on board, but definitely the master on the vessel is a key personnel to ensure that all the seafarers are well aware of all these security risks they have. So I would say that it's a responsibility of everyone, but the dedicated responsibility is actually put into the master side to ensure that he's well versed and he's well aware that it's his responsibility to make sure that his team is well aware of this risk. Yeah.
Okay, super. Thanks, thanks very much. And just while we're with you, just in terms of training, we've had a question come in and asking if cybersecurity is going to mean additional studies for electrical technical officers and deck officers. So is that something that you're envisaging, or are you sort of blanket approach, give everyone a course in IT awareness and cybersecurity and leave it at that, or do you think there's going to become something, or will something creep into STCW in the future?
That's a tough question. Okay. I don't think it is into for my side. I definitely would not want to put in a pressure to bring into academy type of things that they need to memorize or whatever. So I'll in terms of trainings, especially from if it's from our training that we are initiate, I definitely want to make it. It's a way of going through it, and it's just that you don't need it become a nature of life type of things that you don't need to bring out that whole stack of notes and come to memorize it, what is included inside. I make it a burden instead of it become your natural life and knowing that what you see and how to respond to it. That's what the training should be look like. Instead of will there be a stack of notes or things to remember? I say no. It should be a continuous way of more like not a right word, but more like brainwash. Okay, it's not the right word. Okay, it's more like keep on educating them they can react of things happening when they see a certain thing. So that will be more like what we are pushing to on this our training. It will not be a academic type of thing that those technical guys or those engineers need to go through that. I need to learn for IT, specialize on IT instead of my skill set.
Okay, super. Thanks very much. Moving back to you, Stephan. I want to look at the heading into the future, and obviously there's a lot of talk at the moment within the industry about fully automated ships, autonomous ships, things like that. And in those scenarios, I would imagine it's going to be far more difficult to keep the IT systems separate on board. You've got information being transmitted back to shore operation centers with operating parameters, things like that, the ability of shoreside to interact with the vessel. So the systems that you described and showing where you have two separate systems, a gateway between them, is that going to become more of a challenge in going forward into the future when we're looking at autonomous ships?
I think this setup of this gateways, this link between the communication system and the OT systems on board is driven by this regulations that are going now that are affected now, and you have to put this now, or the shipping companies think they have to put this now in place because of the IMO requirements. To talk about autonomous shipping, that is also something that a lot of people like to do. I think we're quite far away from this, even though there are some very nice little projects in a port, in a very closed environment. For sure, if someone is moving a vessel completely autonomous, then you should have complete internet access, lifetime data. Then it's more important to protect your data. But as I said, we are, from my point of view, at least 5 to 10 years away from a complete internet on board, where we can think about then cloud-based navigation like this. So yes, it will come, but not now.
Okay. And Svante, from a class point of view, what do you think the future looks like for us?
The future, well, I definitely think we will have a continuation of this more and more integrated systems on board and more remote connections. I also saw this question here relating to, we have so many different stakeholders remotely connecting to our vessels. I think this will increase over time. I think we're already seeing smart ship solutions. We're seeing this monitoring of systems, remote maintenance of systems, and so on from the service engineers. And definitely, I agree. It will increase. It will be more and more maybe remote controlled vessels even in the future, and to the point where we'll get to the autonomous. Or semi-autonomous vessels, but it will take time, and I think the key is that we should only enable these additional features if we are also ready to take the risk, if we have assessed the risk, and if we have implemented good safeguards in order to manage the risk. Otherwise, it really does not. The value of these additional connections and so on will probably be completely lost, in the sense that we are increasing the risk, or we're putting, and I think that's the key aspect for the shipping managers and owners. We cannot put the responsibility on our providers that we just completely blindly believe that they are taking care of this in the best manner. But we have to state our own requirements towards them. We need to tell them what we expect. We expect dual authentication. We expect a lot of different safeguards. Otherwise, we won't even buy your equipment. We expect continuous, updates of the software and so on. And I think that's a change in the industry that needs to continue it has started, but it has to continue. That the ship owner and manager has to take this, the ownership of his own risk in that sense, not putting it up onto the vendors, but starting to demand better and better solutions. And then I think the more integrated, more autonomous vessels will be manageable and possible in the future.
Okay. Stephen, going back to one of the main areas that you highlighted where the risk is obviously the human element, and in the simplest form of that, it is the able seaman plugging in his USB stick into a ship system and corrupting the whole thing with a virus he's just bought online somewhere. So obviously the procedures that are going to be implemented on board should really start to look at that. But how do we bring that across, taking it away from the vessel, where we have remote access to service engineers, to active suppliers that need to remotely access systems on board the ship? How do we control that? And as a chart supplier yourself, is this an area that you have to do, remotely access active systems on board to help troubleshoot or fix problems? Are there guidelines that companies are putting in place for you to actually adhere to?
As I said, if it's coming to remote access to the vessel and to the actors itself, it must be equipment that is in the type approval of, for example, we did it with DMVGL. This is tested at that stage. And for example, these gateways that Bertil and us implemented, they are even tested according to the cybersecurity standard. And not every shipping company has to do this now on its own again, because DNVGL said, according to these standards, we approve that this is working. And so this is what we, the manufacturer and the DNVGL, took from the shoulder of the shipping company. So if they want something like this, they should go this way. Then this is the safe way of transmitting data forth and back to the vessels.
Okay, super. All right. We've covered a lot of ground, I think. There is a question here which I must be quite honest. I'm not quite sure what it is. So I'm going to read it out, and hopefully you guys will be able to answer it. The question is swooping considered a cyber crime, and what is the recommendation for offshore operators in keeping their positions reliable? So I'm not sure if either of any of you have any information on swooping.
Maybe I can answer this. I believe swooping might be, in this sense, referring to spoofing. That would be my guess, at least.
Okay.
And in this case, answering that, spoofing, yes, definitely. Stephen already talked about this a bit, but spoofing is actually manipulating the signal, manipulating the incoming input into your receiver. And therefore, it is definitely a crime, because it's all of a sudden you might be looking at yourself, at your position of your vessel. It's not the reality, and that could actually cause decisions by the officers on the bridge, and they might actually collide with something or cause a major incident just because they're relying on this information. Obviously, officers are not completely blind. They have their eyes and other systems as well informing them, but even manipulating one system is definitely a crime.
Okay.
If this is the case, that relying on the GPS data solely and not doing all the other things that I mentioned there, then looking out of the window, doing visual position that I had to do at the Navy quite a lot, I think more often than at the commercial shipping. Basic rules of navigation, good seamanship. None of this equipment that we will put on board of the ship will help a vessel not to ground if the master or the second mate is not following the normal ways of good seamanship. And good seamanship is comparing the data in the chart with what you see outside. That is navigation, not trusting what is on the chart. That was never the way how you navigate a vessel. Yeah, and only because we are implementing now new additional equipment on board, this can't be trusted. Yeah, even if you spend thousands of dollars, this position needs to be verified with your eyes, with everything what you have on board, and only then you will be safe.
Yes, I think, Stephen, you've certainly, that's certainly something that I think is, it needs to be borne in mind by all mariners, is obviously to keep, you know, an eye out the window as such. And I think there's potentially more and more reliance on the electronic information that's been, you know, brought into the ship, presented to the officers in the forms of GPS positions, or, you know, an ectus position, or the ship's position shown on an ectus, which shows us in clear weather, and that double check is still vital in the safe navigation of the ship. And again, something that we see in incident investigations where, you know, the handover between officers is not always done as it should be, and, you know, the parameters that are set in an ectus, for instance, are not always set as they should be, and this leads to complications down the line where the vessel is not quite where it was, and it runs aground. So yeah, that's obviously, you know, the Mark 1 eyeball, as we used to call it, is still vitally important, I think. Say, Toon, just coming back to you, and do you see that the measures that you have implemented in Thome across the fleet of ships that you manage, do you think they are going to put a huge extra burden on top of the current workload of the officers at sea? Do you see this as something that is going to have to be extra and you know, create a lot more work for them to do and comply with?
Will there be additional work? There will be additional training. Additional training, additional knowledge for them. Do they have additional day-to-day work? Might not have. At this moment, what we put in actually is more on a system to monitoring all the requirements, all the patches, all the upgrades. There might not be. I don't see there's an additional workload, day-to-day workload. I mean, really a day-to-day workload that they need to put in. I don't see that. But of course, additional type of training, additional type of compulsory training, certifications to ensure that they are aware of all these risks. I think yes, that's have. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So you don't see the cybersecurity measures creating a lot more work for the officers on board in terms of, you know, frequent checklists and things like that have to be completed. It's going to be very much, you know, once it's implemented, it's going to be in place.
I don't see that there's a great jump of effort. I would say that it's as usual. There's no major jump of effort, day-to-day efforts on this area. Okay.
All right. Super. Thank you. All right. I think we're getting through most of our questions, to be honest with you. So I think if we can, you know, look towards wrapping up. I see we are a bit over time. So just in terms of a wrap up, I think what I'd also like you to just address in that is, going forward, do you see the measures that have been implemented now and will be included from January 2021? Is that, do you think that's going to be all that, you know, shipping companies and ships are going to have to do? Or is there going to be a continual update process where these things are going to have to be reviewed periodically and adjusted as IT develops? Stephen, shall we take off with you?
Yeah, as the IMO regulation is saying, it needs to be always reviewed. Yeah, like ISM is saying also, yeah, identify the risk, review it. I think it is the right time to start this, because at the moment it is not that we're too late. We're implementing the cybersecurity measures early enough before all ships are really connected to internet. So I appreciate this, but we should not panicking. Only because everyone is talking about cybersecurity, this is not the biggest threat, and we should keep that in mind. Behave like in the office. Make sure that we're using a computer on board like in the office, and do not do stupid things, and then we're fine. That's my idea about that.
Okay, so Toon?
Definitely, I think this is only a start. It will be continue to review it, and to be honest, I think in my slide I mentioned that it's still very high level. It's not very clear that where's the direction, how are we going to monitor it, how are we going to be audited. So it's not very clear yet. So definitely, I think into review, and I agree with Stephan. Some office with the higher risk, all the hitting of all the cyber attacks really are the office side. Vessel is potential, but because of communication, because of data communication, maybe they will be getting hit, but the chances will be at the lower end. Of course, it's better to be do all the prevention than be regret. So I think it's the right approach that we should look into it, but we just need to cross our finger. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Super. And Svante, from yourself?
Yeah. No, I agree with the last comments. I think we need to keep in mind this is a marathon and not a sprint race. I think it's definitely possible. We have already the safety management system structure that we could utilize as a good basis to roll this out. It's not complete rocket science. We can transfer a lot of the principles that we are already seeing in taking care of risks on board, and just adding the mindset of cyber in here and to it as well. And then we will get actually quite good at minimizing our risk already now. And I think throughout the time coming, we have to take this up again and again, and we have to ask ourselves, how can we improve? What can we do better? And then we'll see opportunities, we will see new technical solutions, we will see possibilities of training materials popping up here and there, and we should utilize these things and be prepared for the future in an even better way than that we can be today. Don't overwhelm ourselves today until the 1st of January, making a program that is supposed to get yourself 100% secure, but to take it step by step, and then it will be okay, I think.
Okay, super. Yeah, I think that's very important. We're in for the long haul. It is a marathon, and it's going to change as things go along. So that's really great. Well, Stephan, Toon, and Svante, thank you very, very much. I'm going to hand back to Harry now. But I think, yeah, what really has come out of this for me is that Cyber 2021 is not as overwhelming as we sometimes read about and that it's made out to be, and that it's just really a slight shift change in the way that we do things, and I think it's all going to be okay going forward. So thank you very much again, and Harry, over to you.
Yes, thanks, Ken. And yes, of course, very, very comforting that even the experts feel that we shouldn't panic, and that was exactly what we wanted to have, instill confidence in our industry that we are going to take this fight to the attackers if they ever haven't. We're going to be resilient, and we will survive as an industry. So thank you. I know, mindful, it's late. It's an excellent Q&A session. Thanks, Ken, Svante, Stephan, and Toon. I'm going to knock on Eve's window. Knock, knock. Hello, Eves. He's just about to rush off for a meeting, and the timing's perfect. I'll hand over now to Eves to wrap up the webinar.
Thanks, Harry. I'm just going to repeat what has been said. I think this was a really interesting discussion. There were a lot of very good points that were made. And Stephan, Toon, Svante, thank you so much for your really great contribution. Ken and Harry, thanks so much for your work in organizing and moderating this webinar. I have put a YouTube channel in the chat, and it's still a little bit wonky. I only set it up last weekend, but you can find all the recordings of our previous webinars there. So this webinar will be uploaded there in the next couple of days. So if you want to check any of the comments again, please go to YouTube and have a look there. If you have any other questions or any that have not been answered because we were running out of time, please do email us singapore.branch@notinst.org, and we will try and pass the question on to the correct person and provide you with a response. Once again, thank you so much. Last item, AGM 19 November. Please sign up and have a good day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Super. Thanks, everybody.